Hey, this is Awesome Arcades. In this video, I'm going to tell you more about this. This is our Tornado Arcade. So I'm going to do this video in chunks. The first one, I'm just going to explain the game board option. There's a new game board that just came out, so I want to tell you about that. Second part of the video, I'll just tell you a little more about the Tornado and the features, how it's built, what it can do. And then the last part, I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about my company, Awesome Arcades. And so first thing I want to point out is that there's a new game board that just came out, and it's called the Pandora DX. So all of my cabinets are going to be designed to play what are called Pandora game boards. Pandora is a type of JAMA board. If you haven't heard the term JAMA yet, JAMA is it's almost like a programming language. It's J-A-M-M-A, and you can Google that. But basically, all original arcade games play this platform that's called JAMA. And so, like an original Miss Pac-Man, JAMA just means, in a nutshell, let me show you this here. Sorry. Inside the cabinets, you see something that looks like this, and then JAMA boards look like this. They've got these little teeth, and basically that thing sticks on there. So that's a JAMA board, that's a JAMA board. This new JAMA board that came out, it can do a lot of cool things that were never previously before available on any JAMA board. And so that's what the first part of this video is going to discuss. So one thing I should point out is that this is obviously a two-player machine, and it's designed to play what are called horizontal games. So in the arcade game world, there are two types of games. Horizontal games, which are played on a monitor that's installed in landscape, and then there are vertical games, which are played in a monitor that has been turned into portrait. Okay, so if you walked up to an original Miss Pac-Man, what you'd be looking at is a TV monitor that has actually been turned on its side, and it allows you to play up and down games like Frogger, Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Galaga. This machine has a monitor that's been installed in landscape. So if you were to watch a movie on it, this is the same way you'd be watching your TV on your TV stand at home. A movie would display correctly. And so prior to these Pandora boards coming out, you couldn't have a machine that could play horizontal games and landscape games because of how the monitor, horizontal games and vertical games. You couldn't have a machine that could do both because of how the monitor would have to be installed to play the two different types of games. And so this board actually allows you to display both vertical and horizontal games all from one screen. And so horizontal games will be displayed across the full screen. Vertical games, what they'll do is they'll actually frame them into the original 4:3 aspect ratio. And so if you've ever watched like an 80s movie on a widescreen TV, they kind of put black bars on the top and the bottom to fill out that wide screen. And so what this board will do is it'll take vertical games and it'll take some black bars on the sides, and then it'll put them into a perfect square in the center. The reason it does that is if you tried to display a vertical game on a horizontal screen, on the older versions of the board, it would actually take Miss Pac-Man and like stretch it out. And once you stretch the image, it affects the gameplay. So the gameplay side to side would be kind of slower than the gameplay up and down. And so as more advanced versions of the Pandora boards came out, they were able to resolve that issue by framing them into the original aspect ratio. And so this Pandora board, again, it's called the Pandora Family DX. It has both vertical and horizontal games. It has a pretty cool search function. So you can go in here, you can go into recently played games. You can search games by title or by the type of games. Okay. In addition, you can create a favorites list. And so part 2 of this video, I'll show you a little more about on the physical board, but basically the board looks something like this. The Pandora DX is almost the same thing, it's just blue. But on the side of the board, there's a little button, right? So you push that button, and then on the screen, it'll say create a favorites list. And then all you do is you go through, if you see a game that you want to add to the favorites list, you just press the A button. So, you've got A, B, C, and then it'll add a star. And that way, the next time you turn the game on, it'll have all your favorite games in a row. Or, like I said, you can go over to the recently played games. And so those features that I just talked about, those are not new to Pandora boards. Okay, all those features, the search function, the favorites list, the ability to look at recent games, none of that is new. What is new on this board is now, so it comes with 3,000 games. Let me touch on this first. It's called the Family package. There's different Pandoras, but this one's called the Family package. And what I discovered, I didn't know why it was called the Family, but what I was able to discern from playing through it is that it has a lot less of these kind of like fighting games and a lot more kind of family-friendly, easier games. Most of those are the earliest arcade games. So this board has the most Atari and Commodore 64 games I've ever seen. So it's got thousands of original coin-operated arcade games, in addition to a ton of Atari, Commodore, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, Sega Genesis, and a lot of other consoles. In addition to all those games, you can now go to a website, download games to a USB stick, plug it in. There's 2 USB ports on the board. I'll show you that too. But basically, if you turn the machine off, download these games to a USB stick, turn it on, and then all the games that you downloaded are going to show up. And so you can really just get unlimited numbers of games. So anything up to 3,000, those are the games that came included. Anything above 3,000 are just games that I was able to download from this website. And so one thing that I should point out, so every game will show you a preview. Okay, on the downloaded games, there's a way to get the little video to show you the preview. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. But you can see here some of the games that I was able to download. The original Punch-Out, The Legend of Zelda, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, one of my favorite games, Metroid, Mega Man, Tecmo Bowl, Skate or Die. It's got a ton of Castlevanias. And so that feature right there is probably the favorite thing about this new board that I like. One of the other cool things that this new Pandora DX can do that none of the other previous boards could do is it supports a trackball. And so now that you've got a trackball, there was always games on here that were trackball games, and most of them you could still play with a joystick. But if you wanted to get a trackball now, it's available during checkout. Now you can play games like Centipede, Millipede, Breakout, Arkanoid. There's some horseshoe games that use a trackball. There's some bowling games that use a trackball, golf games. In addition, this new Pandora board actually allows you to save your high scores and your progress. You can also create save points. And so let me just show you what that looks like. So I'm going to load up Mike Tyson's Punch-Out here. And so the Pandora board is actually also lightning fast. So when you start a game, it loads up at about 1 second. It seems like every year they come out with kind of a newer Pandora board, and they seem to be getting faster and faster every year. And so once you start a game, if you press and hold the 1-player start button, this is how you would normally exit out of a game. But now they have 2 new options. It used to just say continue or exit. But now they have one that says save state or load state. So if you're playing this game and let's say there's 12 guys to beat, you're on guy number 11. Normally you turn it off and you just have to start over. Now you can create a save state, and then the next time you go in, you can do a load state. So you'll see here that I go to the load state. Okay, and now I am on Bald Bull. This is the second Bald Bull, so I'm pretty far into the game at this point. Press and hold the 1-player start button to exit. And then you're going to go back to the main menu. One thing I should point out on the menu is if you press down, it'll scroll 1 game at a time. If you press right, it actually rapid scrolls 1 page at a time. So I know there's 3,000 games, but you can actually scroll through the games pretty quickly. In addition, you could just do the search function. I have this game list on my website. I've also included a favorites list. And so I just went through and I created a list of games that I think you're going to enjoy. They're some of the highest rated games. There's websites, just like Rotten Tomatoes for movies, there's websites for video games where you can go and check the ratings. And I just went and anything that was rated a 9 or above, I added to that favorites list. And so there's a separate part on the bottom of my website. There's a tab that says game list. So if you go to that, you can see the full list, or you could just see the favorites. So one of the last things that I'm going to tell you about this new board is that it's the first board that allows you to plug in PlayStation controllers and you can do 4-player action, okay? So all these games, you can see they have the 4P. So for example, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So what you can do is you can do player 1 and 2 through the joysticks. And then down here, these are the coin box. It's a little dark, but in this coin box, I now keep my PlayStation controllers, which are plugged into the board. And so if you wanted to do 4 players with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and these are available during checkout. So I went through a whole bunch of different USB controllers trying to find nice ones. I mean, you buy them from China, they're on Amazon, and some of them or most of them are really bad. But I found some that are really high quality. They're durable. They're actually, I would say they're identical to the original. They're just USB instead of the PlayStation type plug. But now what you can do on 4-player games is you can do player 1 and 2, and then you can do players 3 and 4 with these PlayStation controllers. Or if you want, you can even switch it around. So you could do player 1 with a PlayStation, player 2 with the joystick, player 3 with the joystick, and player 4 with the PlayStation. And you can kind of mix and match that. So you could do player 1 and 2 on PlayStation, 3 and 4. You get the point. And so again, just to recap, this new Pandora DX family board. It just came out, and it's got a ton of previously not available options. And just to recap them, this board can, well, first of all, it plays vertical and horizontal games. It has a search function, and it has a recently played list. You can do a favorites list. You can now download and add games to a USB stick, plug it in the board, turn it on. All those downloaded games are going to show up. You can add a trackball. It's a USB trackball. That's an option available during checkout. You can save high scores. You can create a save point within the game and then load up that save point so you can pick up your progress where you left off. It's really great for like quest games like Zelda. To beat Zelda, you know, it's like a 20-hour game. And so on previous boards, as soon as you turn it off, you just start over. You could not save your progress. And so that's a big deal. And then lastly, this new board allows you to plug in PlayStation controllers, and now you can do 4-player games or 3-player games. And the board has nicely listed all those so you can see them at the end of the game list. They'll tell you which games are available. And real quick here, I'm just going to show you a little bit of my game list. So again, anything above 3,000, these are just games that I downloaded online. And then these are the games, and again, you can tell because they've got a preview, these are the games that come on the board. And it's pretty much got everything ever made. It's really awesome. It's also, I would argue, this is the best interface I've ever seen on a Pandora board or any other JAMA boards. There's a lot of different boards. If you go on Amazon, if you've never done this, just go on Amazon and search JAMA board, J-A-M-M-A board, or just go on Google. And there's hundreds of different companies, but I've done the research. I've probably bought 15 different brands of boards, and Pandora is by far the best. They're kind of the gold standard. Just know that there's a lot of companies that will claim to be Pandora, but in order to get original Pandora boards, you actually have to go to their website or buy them directly from Amazon. And it's called Pandora's Box is their website. But so I'll just show you a few more of the games here. This board has so many games that were released from 1978 to 1980. I've never seen so many early games like Fire Truck, Sprint. This is the first baseball game. This is a trackball bowling game. Of course, you got Miss Pac-Man. Let me show you what Miss Pac-Man looks like. So again, as I mentioned, when you load up the vertical games, you can see how it doesn't fill the full screen. It kind of frames them on the sides there. Grand Theft Auto. Okay, that's enough for the Pandora DX. Next part of the video, I'll just tell you a little bit more about the Tornado and the different options available. Okay, and so now you've seen, you know, the game board and all the cool things it can do. Let me just tell you a little bit about this. The Tornado is 74 inches tall. It's 28 inches wide. It's 33 inches deep. So every machine on my website was designed to be able to fit through a standard household door, which is, I think Fire Code says it has to be 30 inches. And so this is 28 inches wide. It has a built-in dolly, so there's wheels on the back bottom half of the cabinet, and then there's little levelers on the front. The levelers have like a little pad, and you can screw them up and down. That way when you get the game to where you want it to be, you could just put the levelers down and it will remain stationary. But when you're moving it, it's pretty nice to have these handles. You can kind of see them. I'll show you more in a second. But little handles back there, and then you just tilt it back like a dolly and kind of move it around. So this cabinet here is being shown with the obviously awesome package. On the website, there's different options during checkout. And so you can get this one that says awesome. You can get a matching awesome control panel decal. You could just get this in all black if you don't want any graphics on that. Basically, there's just a piece of black vinyl that I kind of wrap it with. Or over here, this one still has a protective film over it, like a cell phone, but you can get the arcade one that's in a font that looks kind of like Pac-Man, and that has its own matching control panel decal. In addition, I've got one coming down the pipe, and it's going to say 80s arcade, and it's going to be in a pink font. It's going to look like, so obviously these colors are the original Galaga colors. That's kind of where you got the inspiration for this. Obviously this one is supposed to look, you know, it's got the same font as the original Pac-Man. And then the new one that I've got coming out is going to have the same font as the Miss Pac-Man. So it's going to be pink. One thing I was thinking about doing, you can get colored joysticks. So obviously these are black, but you can actually get either green or blue, like midnight blue like that. You can get either yellow or pink to match with that, or with the new one that's coming out that's going to say 80s arcade, you could get pink. So if you're interested in the joysticks, I don't have that as an option available on the website, but that's something I'm looking to implement in 2021. So this cabinet is built of MDF. MDF is it's kind of a treated type of particle board. It's specifically designed for building arcade cabinets. It's 3/4 inch thick, so it's durable. Heavy duty. This cabinet is 215 pounds off the pallet. The reason I use MDF, I mean, most companies that are building arcade cabinets, if they're building like real arcade cabinets, are going to use MDF. But I like it because it's moisture resistant. I ship a lot of games. I don't know what it is about Florida, but I sell more games to Florida than any other state in the union, and it's really humid down there. I also sell a lot of games to cold areas like Park City, Utah, and Aspen and Vail, and so I just wanted to be able to fit in, you know, kind of any climate. This machine has a 24-inch LED wide viewing angle screen. So monitors are measured diagonally, in case you didn't know that. So that's 24 inches diagonal. Wide viewing angle just means that if on a laptop, if you were looking at a laptop straight on and you kind of started looking off to the side, eventually you're going to reach a point where you can't see the screen. And if you get a wide viewing angle, you notice how no matter how much of an angle I get at, you can still see the screen really well. You want to make sure that the companies you're talking to are using wide viewing angle screens. If they're not, the people standing off to the side, I mean, if you're dead on, it's not a problem. But anybody off to the side, you're not using a wide viewing angle screen, you're not going to be able to see it very well. And you especially notice it on the cocktail tables. When you take a TV and lay it flat, it becomes very difficult to see. So let's see, anything else about the cabinet itself? So it does have a functional coin mechanism. On the front of the cabinet, there's two little doors here. And so this is the coin mech. If you ever wanted to add credits, there's a little switch down here that you could just tap. You hear that? And so as you drop a coin through the coin slot, the weight of the coin depresses this little bobby pin, which is mounted on a spring, and it drops down into the coin box. For the purposes of this video, I just have this open. Of course, they do have a free play mode. And so this is also like a legit coin mech. You can always tell, I can tell how nice a cabinet is by the type of coin mechanism they have. Sometimes you see these like little chintzy kind of chrome Chinese looking plastic ones. This is a legit, you know, like a real coin mechanism. Down here's your quarter box, and as I mentioned in the first part of the video, I've got my PlayStation controller sitting in there because I don't use coins to play my cabinet. And I mentioned this trackball is available during checkout. So when it comes to shipping the game, I do buy insurance for them, but I know that cross-country shipping, there's a lot of speed bumps and train tracks and potholes, and so I really pack them well. I do that as much for your benefit as for mine because I don't want them to be damaged. If it did show up damaged, I would just have to ship you a free replacement. And so when you get them, they're going to be packed up really well. But when you unwrap them, you know, have a box cutter or a scissor. On the back of the cabinet, there's going to be that panel. And I showed you this earlier, but there's these handles that you can use. There's going to be a power cord and two keys zip tied to one of those panels. When you remove that, I'm going to show you over here first, and then I'll show you inside the cabinet. So inside the cabinet, what you're going to see is this thing. I kind of talked about that earlier. And then a monitor cable. And so This is the Pandora board. Okay, you can see this board here is $90. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to plug it in. And so Pandora boards come in different shapes and sizes. Obviously, this is the one I just showed you. There's this. But one thing they all have in common, I'm going to use this one because there's no case on it, and it makes it a little easier to see. They all have these teeth or fingers. They all have this little notch here. In a nutshell, this is where the power goes, and this is where the joysticks and the buttons go. But at any rate, on your harness, you're going to see a little piece of tape. You're going to match that blue piece of tape up with this notch here. And so this is the female part. This is the male part. Slide that on like that, and then you're going to plug in your monitor cable. This is just like a computer monitor. Okay, and that's how you plug your board in. Show you that again. So you match up that notch with this blue piece of tape. All right. Now, you may or may not have read this on the website yet. I mean, the reason that I'm showing you the game boards, these are not included. Now, the reason I don't include the game boards is because of how much it would cost for me to license these boards and then install them in the cabinet. So you can buy your game board separate. I can sell you the cabinet separate. But the moment I put the game board in the cabinet, I have to have a licensing agreement. And because of all the different games and the different companies involved, you're getting into the thousands of dollars. And so instead of charging people $1,000 or $1,500 more for this cabinet, I figured I would let you buy the cabinet and then buy the game board yourself. The reason I want to show you what it looks like to plug the game board in is because, unfortunately, when people on the website read that they have to buy their own games, unfortunately, I don't want to say they freak out, but a lot of them are really put off by that. And I understand because it's kind of an unknown thing. You see this big arcade cabinet and you're like, I don't know how to add games to that thing. It's it's an unknown variable, but I'm confident once you see what it really looks like. You get this on Amazon Prime, it's going to show up at your house. And on the back of the cabinet, you're going to take this thing and you stick that in, and now you've got 3,000 games. Don't forget to plug in your monitor, and that's pretty much it. And so I'm going to show you over here on the cabinet what that looks like. And I'm going to try to do this. It's kind of dark back there, and I'm wearing a head-mounted camera, so I can't do too much with a flashlight here, but let's see what we can do. So I'm going to set that right there. I think I should have figured this out before I started filming, huh? All right, so here's the harness that I showed you over there. I know it's dark, but you saw it over there. But basically, you take that, you stick that on there. Now I've got my monitor cable. I'm just going to go right here, like I showed you. And then we have got, there's a USB port over on this side. And let me just move this over here so you can see that. And so I have a USB splitter on here. This is just a thing that allows you to plug in 5 USBs into one. And one of them is for the trackball. The other two are for the PlayStation controllers that I showed you in the beginning of this video. But basically there is a place right here where you plug in your USB. Murphy's Law, you gotta try it. Up, down, up, down. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is that on the side of the board, once you get it all plugged in, there's a little button. If you press that button, you come over here to the front of the screen, and now you've entered the setup. And so I do this on all the cabinets. Whenever somebody buys a cabinet, first thing I'm gonna do is plug this board in. I come over here to IO test. And what that allows you to do is just check the joysticks and make sure everything's responding, check all the buttons. That way you know if there's a button bad or something, a wire got disconnected or something. Now once you go back to the main menu, you can actually go into specific games. You can increase the difficulty or decrease the difficulty level. You can increase the number of lives that you get per credit. So for example, Donkey Kong is a really hard game, and I think you only get 3 lives. You can increase that to 5 lives. And so lowering the difficulty level and increasing lives is really cool for my family. I have a 4-year-old, and some of these games, he's not quite coordinated enough yet. So the last thing I wanted to show you is whenever you do changes or you go into setup, you have to leave, and then you have to save your changes and exit. This board, everything this board does is lightning fast. Loading the games, exiting the games, creating save points. It's just got the most, I don't know if it's RAM or ROM, but it's fast. It's faster than any other board. And this will be an example. To do the save and exit on the previous versions, sometimes it would take like 30 seconds. But now you go to save, yes, and it takes like 2 seconds to go back to the menu. Just wanted to show you that last feature. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know.